You're watching WPDE, News Channel 15 at 6. And now, the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news. WPDE, News Channel 15.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for this special edition of News Channel 15. I'm Joel Allen. This morning, the Space Shuttle Columbia was lost while it re-entered Earth's atmosphere, and we're covering this from several different angles. Right now,
ABC's
massive
investigation
Andrew Colton
is now underway as NASA engineers try to figure out just what happened to Columbia and its crew.
The Columbia is lost. There are no survivors.
With those words, President Bush confirmed what had been feared for hours. Space Shuttle Columbia had broken apart and fallen to Earth as it flew towards its scheduled landing at the Kennedy Space Center. The Columbia, the oldest shuttle in the U.S. fleet, was nearing the end of a successful 16-day mission and was scheduled to land in Florida at about 9:16 Eastern Time. About 15 minutes prior to landing, ground controllers lost contact with the spacecraft as it flew over Texas at an altitude of 40 miles.
The first indications were of the loss of sensors, temperature sensors in the hydraulic systems on the left wing.
At the same time, people on the ground heard a loud explosion and moments later saw bright pieces of debris flying through the sky.
I could hear the sound like thunder, or maybe a real heavy helicopter.
Debris from Columbia fell across Texas, sometimes landing in residential areas. Authorities quickly warned residents not to pick up or touch any of the remnants, some of which could be hazardous.
Well, they say it could be radioactive, so we need you to see the emergency.
Across the country, American flags were lowered to half-staff, from the White House to the Kennedy Space Center to the Johnson Space Center, where a makeshift memorial was started. The mother of astronaut David Brown said her son would want NASA to press on.
His brother, Doug, asked David, what if you should die? And Dave said, well, this program has to go on.
The 7-person crew of the Columbia was made up mostly of space rookies. Mission specialist Ilan Ramon, a former Israeli fighter pilot, became a hero in his homeland when he was named to the crew. Because Ramon wasn't Israeli, there were concerns that the incident might have been a terrorist act. NASA officials quickly determined that this was very unlikely. An immediate concern for NASA is how to get 3 astronauts on the International Space Station back home. NASA could use a Russian spacecraft, but would prefer not to. However, the Space Shuttle fleet is now grounded. We're live at the Kennedy Space Center. I'm Andrew Colton, ABC News. Now back to you.
As we just heard, the Space Shuttle Columbia was a pioneer in NASA's fleet. Columbia was the oldest of the 4 shuttles. It was the first to enter Earth's orbit in 1981. The latest voyage was its 28th trip into space. Here along the Grand Strand, residents and visitors are reflecting tonight on the men and women who gave their lives for all of mankind. Team 15's Candace Smith met this day in the community gathering people's thoughts, and she joins us now live. Candace.
Well, Joel, from restaurants to the airport, it was a somber mood everywhere we went today along the Grand Strand. And most people we spoke with today tell us they're still in shock. Devastation, shock, and terror have struck America. But here, residents say life must go on. At the Myrtle Beach International Airport, travelers stood in line at the ticket counter and prepared to board flights. Across town, other residents stopped to grab a bite to eat with friends. But even as they went about their day, people we spoke with tell us they're still in shock after the morning's tragic events.
I'm not anxious. I'm still in shock from seeing the report over the TV just before we left the hotel.
We were in the Atlanta airport when we saw the highlights. At first it shocks you because you don't realize, we take it for granted those things go up like airplanes, they come down and land safely, and this is the second time one of them is blowing up.
I'm just shocked. I thought that this would be all over after the Challenger incident. I hope we haven't gotten too complacent.
But for some, the loss means more.
Well, I guess it's you have a much deeper feeling because, if this would have happened last year this time, a friend of ours would have been on it. So it'd been a personal loss.
Though many people we spoke with talked about grief, loss, and tragedy, some say the incident will only make America stronger.
But it makes you pause and you realize how fragile that program is. But life goes on, And I hope, the next one goes up, launches on schedule, and that it's safe. Maybe they'll learn something about what happened here and prevent a future catastrophe.
Now, while NASA officials will continue to investigate, people here tell us that the event for them was eye-opening, and it showed them just how fragile life really is. Joel, we're live in Myrtle Beach. Let's go back to you.
All right, Candace, thanks. Now, when you see a space shuttle falling through the air in pieces, of course, it calls to mind the loss of the Challenger crew, and one of those crew members was from Lake City. Dr. Ronald McNair's family still lives in this small town that some people like to refer to as McNairville, and the family members say tonight seeing this shuttle explosion brings back all of the feelings and memories from when they lost a nephew and a cousin, and the town of Lake City lost a son. The family says there is a long road ahead for the families of Columbia's crew, and they need the support now of the entire world. Just this past week, Lake City residents gathered to remember the life of Ronald McNair. The Shuttle Challenger mission was supposed to be his last before he stepped down as an astronaut. Then last Wednesday, on the anniversary of the disaster, people honored the small-town man who made such an enormous impression. Attendees said McNair's accomplishments give all small-town residents the hope that they too could make it big. Unlike today's accident, which occurred during a descent, the Shuttle Challenger exploded shortly after takeoff. The space shuttle blew up 73 seconds after liftoff from Florida's Kennedy Space Center back on January 28, 1986. All 7 astronauts on board were killed, including Krista McAuliffe, who would have been the first teacher in space. For continuing coverage of the Shuttle Columbia disaster, stay with WPDE News Channel 15 and ABC News. World News Saturday will have the latest at 6:30, and then we will have more tonight at 11 on News Channel 15. So let's pause just a minute from the news and check on our forecast now. Meteorologist Jen Gilbert is in with that. Jen?
Thanks so much, Joel. Well, outside this morning, plenty of clouds out there, even some drizzle, light rain, and of course, lots of fog. The good news, of course, by the time the afternoon rolled around, all those clouds pushed out of our area and really started to break up, allowing us to get a good amount of sunshine in. Right now, though, still fairly comfortable outside. Temperatures made it into the mid to upper 50s. Right now, we are at 51 in Florence, 52 in Myrtle Beach, and 50 right now in Lumberton. And for this evening, your first forecast will show you by 11 o'clock. Temperatures will be dropping down into the middle 40s, but still mostly clear skies. In fact, the skies will be clearing overnight tonight and throughout the day tomorrow, and warmer weather is on the way. I'll have all the details, Jill, in just a little bit.
Okay, Jen, thanks. Tonight's other news includes the hunt for a missing search and rescue dog. Live from the Grand Strand to the PD, this special edition of News Channel 15 continues in just a moment.